Call to order meeting for the Normal Town Council for Monday, November 2025. Please call the roll.
Mayor Kus?
Here.
Mr. Preston?
Here.
Mrs. Lorenz?
Here.
Mr. Byers?
Here.
Mr. Roberge?
Here.
Ms. Smith?
Here.
Mr. McCarthy?
Here.
We'll begin with a pledge of allegiance. We move right into public comment. We have a number of public commenters tonight. Just to review the rules, what we ask is you come up and take any of these chairs up here. All the mics are live. State your name for the record, and you have 3 minutes to make your public comment. Our first public commenter is Mike Kerber.
Can you hear me okay? Because I can't hear how loud I'm talking after 8 months in the artillery in Vietnam. I'm Mike Kerber, as I said. I walk or ride my bike across the tracks uptown Normal often. And I believe the tunnel is a great idea. There are many of us, including hundreds of ISU students, crossing the tracks daily. When a 2-mile-long container train is coming, some people go around the pedestrian gates and try to beat the train. The tunnel would give everyone a safer way to get to the other side of the tracks. We need the tunnel now and in the future. Some say it's too expensive. We heard this when Constitution Trail was proposed, and look at what a success it is. We heard this about the roundabout circle, and it has made it safer for cars and pedestrians to navigate the uptown. We heard this when the town government wanted a new building and an Amtrak station. We now have one of the busiest Amtrak stations in the country for a town our size. I know because I use Amtrak a lot. I've been all over the country on Amtrak and I love it. It's a great asset for this community. And will the people that will use the tunnel mind paying 2 cents more for a sandwich or a beer in Uptown if it will give us a safer and more convenient way to cross our very busy railroad? Because of the foresight and careful planning by our town leaders like you, we enjoy a quality of life many towns would love to have. The tunnel will continue that improvement in our quality of life in Normal. Please vote yes. Thank you.
Our next speaker is Pat Dullard.
I'm excused.
Good evening. Before my time starts, can I just say that preparing for my comments tonight, I looked back at a meeting from 2017. Mrs. Lorenz, Ms. Reed, you're timeless. You haven't changed a bit. Mr. Preston, I would say the same for you. Mr. McCarthy, Mayor Kus, there's a lot less pepper in that salt and pepper here than there was a long time ago. Anyway, my name is Patrick Dullard, and I am a resident of Normal for 46 years. In 2017, utilizing an underpass with public space option was determined after a thorough evaluation process that considered at-grade crossings, 3 overpass options, 3 underpass options, and a no-build option. While the underpass project was clearly portrayed as the most expensive project, over 75% of the citizens that participated in the public hearing and the 30-day comment period chose the underpass as the best alternative. Similarly, there was strong support on the council with a 5-2 vote to proceed with planning and attempts to secure funding for this alternative. Consider the effort that has taken place to get us here this evening. The complexity of a project that required negotiations with Union Pacific, Amtrak, IDOT, the ICC, the FRA, and the U.S. Department of Transportation cannot be overstated. The efforts of Ms. Reese, Mr. Peterson, Mr. Otto, Mr. Aldridge, Mr. Yoon, and other current and former town staff need to be recognized and commended. Let's talk about the BUILD grant for a minute. First, how many realize that it's an acronym? Better Utilizing Investment to Leverage Development. That's the essence of the underpass project, isn't it? Doesn't create an attractive and safe connection between Uptown and Uptown South position us for a development of 8 acres of prime infill real estate? More importantly, the fact that a BUILD award was received in the first place is validation of the quality of this project. Competition for BUILD grants is fierce. Normal applied 3 years in a row before being lucky enough to receive a grant in 2019. That year, only 55 grants nationwide were awarded from 665 eligible applicants. The fact that we were one of them demonstrates that this was a project with merit that serves the public good. I ran some numbers on the impact of the proposed tax changes. An Expedia search for this Saturday evening of hotels in Normal produced 13 results, including 2 in Uptown. The average rate for this sample was $102, with the highest being $159. The revised tax results in only a $2 increase per night on average, and about $3 for the most expensive room. That kind of pricing change is not going to influence consumer behavior or push people to out-of-town hotels. On the food and beverage tax, let's make sure that everyone is aware that it doesn't affect groceries. Further, if one spends $100 dining out on food and drinks, the change in the tax rate results in a 25-cent increase in the bill. Hardly something that will be noticeable. The proposed tax rate changes present minimal impact on our residents, especially the most vulnerable. Finally, please consider both the short and long-term consequences of reneging on awarded grants and not moving forward with the project. You are all aware that as a community, we are tax creditors. We send more to the state and federal governments in taxes than is returned in state and federal spending here. In the short term, you won't have saved the local taxpayers $12 million. You will have allowed $28 million of our tax dollars to go and be spent somewhere else. And you'll have prevented $13
Mr. Dollard,
million.
I'm gonna ask you to wrap it up.
Okay,
pretty
and you'll
quickly.
prevent $13 million in labor costs from providing work and good wages and spreading throughout our communities. In the long term, you will have damaged the town's reputation as a municipality that gets things done, and you will severely hamper our ability to secure state and federal grants in the future. Successful completion of prior grants is a key component in evaluating and awarding grant submission. As trustees of this community, it is imperative that you support this project. Thank you for your time.
Our next speaker is Ron Paul.
Thank you, Mayor. My name's Ronnie Paul. I'm the business manager for Laborers Local 362. We have over 800 members in this community, and on behalf of our members and their families, I want to thank this council, Mayor Coos, City Manager Pam Reese, Ryan Otto as well. I know he did a lot of work on this. It's taken us a long time to get here, and in the end, I think this will be well worth the wait. This project is something that is much needed for the community. I think the town of Normal has done an amazing job with Uptown, And this is the last piece of that puzzle. And we need to make sure we fund it and get it pushed through. Like I said, this is something that we're going to have members that this will be their first job. We'll be working on this Uptown project. We're going to have some members that retire on this job. The length of this job and the hours that are going to be put into this project is there's a lot. And with the administration currently going on now and the healthcare subsidies that are skyrocketing, projects like this give our members health care. The hours they work on this project will secure health care for them and their families. It'll put into their pension and their annuity for when they retire. And this is something that is not only beneficial to the town for safety reasons, its citizens and the union contractors and workers that live here in this area. It'll be essential for us to make sure that this passes, and with that, we're looking for your support on this project. So on behalf of Labor's Local 362, we want you to know that we support this project and hope to get your vote yes tonight. Thank you.
Next speaker is Laurel Schumacher.
Mayor Coos, Town Council, respected town staff, my name is Laurel Schumacher, and I come before you to voice my support for the Uptown Underpass project. I am a resident of Normal. My husband and I have lived in Normal for about 10 years after making a conscious choice to move from Bloomington to Normal when we were ready to downsize and retire. Choosing a home in Normal was non-negotiable for us and the primary focus in our house hunting. We wanted to live in Normal because of the growth mindset Normal seems to operate with. We enjoy this welcoming community, the value you give to pedestrian and bike-friendly spaces, beautiful and vibrant public spaces, and a clear vision for continued development and community improvements. I see Normal as a community that invests in its citizens' quality of life, as well as encourages thriving commerce. Normal strives to be not only a great community, but an extraordinary one. For a decade now, Normal's been planning and working towards the pending underpass project. The project will bring not only a safe passage for pedestrians and bikers, but also provide a viable and accessible link with the north and south portions of Uptown, bringing immense opportunity for increased urban community space, additional commerce and retail development. This project will be transformative for our vibrant community. Normal took their time surveying citizens, attaining expertise and input, and securing funding sources to help bring this project into reality. Now we are seemingly at a crossroads with the need for further funding to bring this project home. The proposed revenue funding of raising the food, beverage, and hotel-motel tax feels very reasonable to me. I strongly feel that the impact will be minimal related to the benefits we will see out of this project. Additionally, our food, beverage, and hotel-motel tax rates will remain comparable to surrounding communities. I don't believe it's out of line. I actually believe it's a win-win. I am asking you to vote yes for this project. Let's continue to be a community that attracts economic growth and quality of life improvements. I thank you all for your service and trust that you will continue to help this community we all love not only be a great place to live, but an extraordinary one. Thank you for your time.
Our next speaker is Renee Bradley.
Good evening. My name is Renee Bradley. I live at 1303 North Walnut Street. The vote before you tonight for the proposed increase in food and beverage tax and the hotel motel taxes deserves careful consideration. I'm urging you to vote no. I ask that you not put the underpass project on the backs of the local restaurateurs and hoteliers during these very uncertain times. We simply cannot take a look at the future of the town and ignore what's going on around us. With tariffs, reduction in SNAP, the cost of health insurance, a federal government shutdown, and the cost of meat and produce, which is already hurting the restaurant industry. Ms. Smith, you bring a great financial background, experience, and expertise to the council. I appreciate you digging deep into these matters and asking the right questions. I'm asking that you do this tonight. Mr. Roberg, we've not met, but I see you're employed by a large insurance company here locally. I know they understand the uncertainty as well. As a veteran, I appreciate your service this Veterans Month. And I see your commitment to the Red Cross with not just blood donations, but as a 2-time cancer survivor, I know the commitment for plasma and platelets as well, and I'm grateful. Your entire resume screams common sense to me, and I hope you'll recognize this and not let the town take a risk it shouldn't take. Mr. McCarthy, as a small business owner, I'm sure you see what the possibility of increased health care costs must mean to you and your crew. Surely you see the uncertainty facing the students that you coach as well. It used to be that a college degree and a strong education was enough, but the students moving on after this academic year face a great deal of uncertainty in the job market. Mr. Preston, I've seen your lengthy commentary from you today, and I agree with you. Ms. Lorenz, I think we all know by now that you work for Home Sweet Home. I've spent some time with your colleagues in recent weeks. What a solid group of people. The need is great, but as you know, the call to service is greater. And this must seem like a ridiculous thing being debated at this time. Mr. Byers, I have come to appreciate your service on the council, even though you've not yet completed an entire term. I think I actually understand what you do for a living, even though it's kind of complicated, and I don't think I could explain it to anybody else. But I think you get this. It has to be the right place and the right time, and all the ingredients there to make a deal, and clearly this isn't. We didn't ask for this. The students didn't vote for this. The residents didn't vote for this. I think most of us were fine with this as long as there was grant money to support it. Mr. Kousas said, you don't just live in a great place, you work to make great places, and I agree with that. But this is not a project worth pursuing at this time. Let's look for something else. Start over if necessary. Make an overpass like the beautiful stations on the Amtrak line in Sturtevant, Wisconsin, or Fullerton, California. But for now, a no vote will stop this boondoggle, and that's what I urge you to do tonight. Thank you.
Next, excuse me, our next speaker is John Penn.
Thank you, Mayor. John Penn. I live at 9667 Crossroad Drive in Bloomington, Illinois. In about 2 weeks from now, I'll be living at 701 Broadway, Normal, Illinois. It'll be the first time in 46 years I've had the right to vote for the city council mayor, and looking forward to it. Listening to the comments and the need for this underpass, I want to think about the infrastructure that we're talking about here. The underpass is one thing, very, very important, but the infrastructure is even more important for growth. We're talking about 8 acres south of the train station that we will have economic development, multiple use facilities, homes, small business, tax base. When we talk about the 186 jobs for the underpass, which is 19 months of employment, that does not feed our families. What feed our families is economic development. The infrastructure, those 8 acres that we're talking about developing, will create more work for our members and for the citizens of Normal and McLean County than just the underpass that we're talking about. I think we need to look at the whole picture here when we talk about the underpass and think about the future that we're talking about redeveloping into the South Station area there that's in bad need. This council has done a great job. I remember living here back as a kid where it was a quiet community, where it was more of a retirement community. now what this council has done over the last 20 years plus, you brought this city into a real-life facility that we're very proud of. People want to live in Normal, Illinois. They want to move to Normal, Illinois. You've got a great relationship with Illinois State University. You've got a great Twin City relationship, and this is going to continue to grow. But without infrastructure, there is no growth. So I don't think we're just talking about the underpass tonight as much as we're talking about the growth of the town of Normal going south from the train station. Thank you, Mayor.
Next speaker is John Brinkman.
John Brinkman. Mayor Coos, Manager Reese, council members and staff, thank you for your time. While this topic is certainly not a new one, we've been through this a long time, I really believe that the issue is how are we funding it and how much does it cost? We talked about the potential small increases that this may reflect on our industry, hotel and restaurant hospitality. $3 a night at a low rate. When you have corporations that are part of our community, booking tens of thousands of rooms causes lots of increase to them, not to us. Obviously, it's a tax upon guests that come in, but it's also on the corporations. We struggle for $1 here, $1 there when we try to do increases for hotel rates. When you search for hotel rates or restaurant, you look at prices. It's that time of the world. Everything's a dollar amount. So again, I don't think it's the issue so much of the underpass or the overpass that's needed. I too agree. I think it's a great project. It's how it should be funded. Just two small, quick follow-up questions, and I'll be very brief. If this home rule decides to do that this evening, when will it go into effect? And how long will it last? And that's my two follow-ups. Thank you.
Next speaker is Ron Ulmer.
I have a couple quick comments. Thank you for allowing me to speak. With respect to this project, I believe the train has left the station. Springfield, when the high-speed rail was installed, Springfield received vehicle and pedestrian underpasses. I'm sure they requested them. Where was Normal? It would have cost many, many millions less. Similarly, one time a few years ago, I requested that trees be trimmed at intersections, trees and brush, because when you're trying to make at a stop sign or so, you're trying to make a left turn, right turn, or just go through the intersection, your view was blocked. I was told by a town of Normal staff employee they would not trim the trees very quickly because there was a lawsuit against the town because of a car accident because vegetation was blocking the intersection. Normal, you folks drive around, the police drive around, public works people drive around. How come none of you anticipate much before someone is hurt or before it costs millions of dollars? You look back. You don't live. I mean, I'm just so frustrated with the town of not looking forward and anticipating anything. And I've mentioned block sidewalks in Uptown Normal by vegetation or at the edge by the railroad crossings. Don't any of you ever walk through Uptown Normal or drive through Uptown Normal? People had to walk out in the streets before some of that was trimmed. You really care about the safety of the citizens, right? And that's not very expensive to trim brush on sidewalks, blocking pedestrian crossings or railroad tracks. Thank you.
Our next speaker is Chad Pacey.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, council members, town staff, and residents of Normal. My name's Chad Pacey, and I'm the president of the Normal Firefighters, Local 2442. On behalf of our members, I want to express our concern regarding the proposed underpass project. While we fully support efforts to improve safety and accessibility for pedestrians and Amtrak users, this specific project comes at a substantially higher cost, a cost that will ultimately fall on taxpayers. To be clear, the safety of the public is of great importance to us. We recognize the need to ensure pedestrians and travelers can move safely and efficiently through our community, but the proposed underpass is not the only way to achieve that goal. The cost of this project will divert funds from other critical needs, including public safety shortcomings that currently exist in our community. Staffing levels, response coverage, equipment needs are all areas that deserve immediate attention and investment. These are not simply statements, as each of you have received the results of a data-driven study detailing the safety deficits confronting the town. Those are the kinds of improvements that make a real and measurable difference when protecting citizens. And in our line of work, minutes and even seconds matter when dealing with emergencies. The 2nd Street fire early Sunday morning underscored that reality. When emergencies strike, seconds aren't just numbers, they're lives. This is not about opposing progress, it's about promoting responsible progress. Our community should expect thoughtful decision-making that prioritizes essential services and ensures taxpayer dollars are used where they have the greatest impact on public safety and quality of life. We urge the council to carefully consider this project and ensure that future investments reflect the community's most pressing safety and infrastructure needs. Thank you for your time.
And our final public comment prior to the meeting. We do have a public commenter speaking at the end of the meeting. Matt Sweeney.
Good evening, Mayor, Council. Thank you for the time of being able to speak here tonight. My name is Matt Sweeney, and I'm speaking tonight as a business owner here in the town of Normal. For transparency, I'm a non-union civilian employee of the Normal Fire Department, but I'm speaking tonight only as a private business owner, not as a representative of the department or its views. As someone that works and owns a business in the town of Normal, I support projects that improve safety, accessibility, and the overall quality of life in our community. I love the town of Normal. I love working here. I love coming to work. I love what I do. I love owning a business in Normal. It's a great place, and we do amazing things. But I'm very concerned that the proposed pedestrian underpass project may no longer be a financially responsible or feasible undertaking for the town. When this project was first discussed, we were told it would cost around $13 million, mostly funded by grants, with the town paying less than $1 million. Today, its projected costs have ballooned to over $40 million, with $15 million coming directly from local taxpayers. To fill that gap, as you know, we're looking at issuing bonds, additional taxes on food, beverage, and hotel stays. It's not a minor adjustment. It represents a complete reversal of the financial picture we were initially presented. A premise that this would be a largely grant-funded project is no longer holding true, and the taxpayers are now being asked to carry a burden they never agreed to when the project began. There may be a simpler, safer, and far less expensive way to accomplish the same goal. We already have 2 at-grade pedestrian crossings, one at Linden, one at Broadway, each with lights, gates, audible warnings that work safely every day. If those crossings are considered safe and acceptable by federal standards, why not explore a similar gated crossing in the middle of the corridor? That would provide the same north-south connection, be fully ADA compatible, and require far less construction time and disruption, all while avoiding the long-term maintenance, drainage, and security concerns of an underpass. I understand that money has already been spent on the planning and design, and so much work has gone into this project. And the temptation is there to move forward just because we've come this far, but it's just not financially responsible. The public will forgive this council for saying the numbers have changed, it no longer makes sense. Or even, we just need to step back and take another look at the options. But once it's approved and construction begins, there's no going back. We'll be locked into the debt, we'll be locked into the maintenance, and the public won't forget. This project started with good intentions, and there is no denying we need a good way to get across those tracks. But recognizing that the circumstances financially have changed, and changing our course is not a weakness, it's leadership, and unfortunately the task that you are all faced with, and it is not an enviable one. I just respectfully ask you to pause, reevaluate, and have the courage to choose the option that truly protects the town's finances and the public trust. Thank you for your time and continued service. Appreciate it.
That concludes our public comment prior to the meeting beginning. We move to the omnibus agenda items that will be taken in a single vote unless a council member would like to pull an item for discussion. How about a move for approval?
Move approval.
I request to remove item E and F from the omnibus agenda.
Move approval.
Thank you.
Second.
Items considered under omnibus tonight are approval of the minutes of the regular council meeting of October 20th, 2025, and approval of the minutes of the work session of October 29th, 2025. A report to receive and file Town of Normal expenditures for payment as of October 29, 2025. A resolution waiving the formal bid process and accepting a quote from Seiler Geospatial for the purchase of a Trimble controller and a Trimble GPS unit in the amount of $38,839.86. A resolution to waive the formal bidding process and approve a contract with Digicom Installations for dispatching and station alerting equipment and installation. Please call the roll.
Mr. Preston?
Aye.
Mrs. Lorenz?
Aye.
Mr. Byers?
Aye.
Mr. Roberge?
Aye.
Ms. Smith?
Aye.
Mr. McCarthy?
Aye.
Mayor Kus?
Aye. Those items are approved. Item E is a resolution authorizing a contract with G.A. Rich and Sons Incorporated for the Ironwood Pump Station Rehabilitation Contract in the amount of $1,404,605. Smith?
Move for approval.
Second.
Thank you, Ms. Smith.
I pulled this agenda item because it is a substantial number. And I wanted to provide some clarity for the public record to discuss the original equipment's useful life and compare that to what we will be installing with this expenditure.
Okay, I'll give it a shot. This particular pump station, lift station, serving Ironwood neighborhood is located off Northtown Road, and we're asking for rehabilitation of that lift station. It's for sanitary sewer service. It is currently 36 years old, although the pumps themselves have been each replaced already. We're looking to redo the entire structure and the major components of that lift station. Once this investment is done, we would expect it to have a 50-year useful life for the structure. The pumps will continue to be replaced as needed more frequently than that.
And is there any anticipated increase in houses being served by this lift station at this time?
No, this is a replacement of the existing lift station and all it serves.
Thank you. That's all I had.
Further on this item? Please call the roll.
Mrs. Lorenz?
Aye.
Mr. Byers?
Aye.
Mr. Roberge?
Aye.
Ms. Smith?
Aye.
Mr. McCarthy?
Aye.
Mr. Preston?
Aye.
Mayor Kus?
Aye, that resolution is approved. Item F is a resolution waiving the formal consultant selection process and authorizing a contract with Applied Research Associates for a pavement conditioning, rating, assessment, and management update, and that's in the amount of $109,900. Ms. Smith?
Move for approval.
Second.
You, Ms. Smith.
And as far as this agenda item, I understand that we have been using a system of pavement assessment called PACER. And is this a replacement or an upgrade to that method?
It's basically an update to the 2022 study that was done, the pavement assessment rating. So we're going to, as I believe in 2022, when we did our first pavement assessment survey, we informed council that this would be a recurring evaluation of how we are progressing on our pavement preservation efforts. And so this will be an update of the 2022 study. They'll drive around town like they did a couple years ago. Through digital and technology, they will assess the condition of our various pavement areas and let us know how we're doing. If we've if we've improved on our pavement preservation efforts or where we're at. So and then we can use that information for our prioritization of capital projects and street resurfacing.
That's all I had. Thank you.
Further? Please call the roll.
Mr. Byers?
Aye.
Mr. Roberge?
Aye.
Ms. Smith?
Aye.
Mr. McCarthy?
Aye.
Mr. Preston?
Aye.
Mrs. Lorenz?
Aye.
Mayor Kus?
Aye, that resolution is approved. We move to new business. We have a number of items on new business tonight, most having to do with the underpass project moving forward. What I'm going to recommend is, since they're all very much intertwined and connected, that we we take the first item for approval and do all of our comments on the rest of this in one batch instead of on each item. That way it gives us time to have a broader conversation. A lot of people in the room, I think they'll benefit from us doing it that way as well. So the first item is an ordinance approving an increase to the town's food and beverage tax from 2% to 2.25%, and an increase in the town's hotel motel tax from 6% to 8%.
Move approval.
Thank you.
Second.
Thank you. Ms. Reese, you're going to start with some comments.
Sure, and since we're going to be talking about all 6 items sort of as a package, I'll do some introductory comments for council. The last item on the agenda under new business is not directly related to the underpass project, so we're holding that for conversation later. We had a work session on Wednesday evening. I'm going to do a sort of a Cliff Notes or Reader's Digest version of summary of how we got to the point we're at. And then staff is prepared to answer any questions council might have and respond to any discussion topics. So the reason we're here this evening and have all these items on the agenda for council action is because they're all linked. For about 10 years, the underpass project, a rail separation, rail crossing, has been identified as a priority major project in our various strategic plans. So we've been working on this for quite some time. Why we're asking council to look at all these things as a package this evening, again, is because everything is linked. And what we have completed design, as council knows, we've completed design of the underpass. This particular capital project was determined by council in 2017 as a priority, and an underpass was selected, as we heard earlier from one of the public commenters, that this particular project was of greater preference than an overpass. In fact, during the Uptown 2.0 master planning process in 2017, where we had been working on an overpass, the public input from the planning study rejected the overpass and asked council to prioritize an underpass. We then came back with goals of an underpass project as well as design concepts, and council at the time gave staff direction. Those goals focused on safety and accessibility for rail passengers as the primary priority, in addition to pedestrian and bicyclist safety on trail, and then of course the economic development impact that eliminating the barrier of the railroad tracks would have on the 8 acres on the south side of the tracks. So all those things come to play. So here we are in 2025, and design has been complete. The project has been bid. The bids were high. The project was slightly modified, going through a value engineering process. The bidders were allowed an opportunity to amend their bid accordingly, and so the bids came down somewhat. And so one of your following action items here is staff requesting approval of construction, the bids on this underpass project. However, before we get to approving a contract or asking council to approve a contract, it's important for us to know how we're going to pay for the project. And so that brings us to the funding source. The numbers have changed, as I indicated on Wednesday evening. This is a major capital project. and major capital projects, unfortunately, are very expensive. This has exceeded our plan, and so we're coming to council, asking council for support for finding a funding source to complete the project, because we believe this is a transformational project that will be a catalyst for economic development on the south side of the tracks, not unlike we experienced 20 years ago with our investment in infrastructure and the roundabout here on the north side of the tracks. So the first item here is asking council to approve a tax increase that staff does not take lightly, nor does council. We don't come to you regularly asking for tax increases to fund capital projects. However, as council knows, whenever we ask you to consider a debt issuance, we want to identify the funding source so we can effectively make our debt service payments. So this first action item is to asking council to increase food and beverage tax by 2% and the hotel motel tax by 2% and the food and beverage tax by 0.25%. Be happy to talk in response to any council questions about how those numbers came to be, but those revenue streams would generate enough income to the town to pay our debt service. Then after that will come the actual approval of the debt and then approval of the construction contract and construction management. So that's how all these items are linked together. We're here asking for council action tonight so that we can move forward if council chooses. We can move forward with the project and meet the required deadlines and timelines for the federal grant. We've got federal and state grant dollars totaling about $25 million into this project if everything gets approved. And the timeline would be such that we need to execute a construction contract to get construction going as soon as possible in order to meet those deadlines. And again, that's driving the timeline. We did receive an approved grant amendment with the Federal Rail Administration that reflects this new construction bid that came in. And so now that we've received that grant affirmation, we're asking council for quick turnaround.
Okay. Let me start with just a comment on something that was very apparent in the emails that we got and people who have talked to me, and that is that we had a work session last week and we're voting on it tonight. And that has shocked a lot of people as being very, very quick action. And I would agree with that on almost every situation. I think it's important to give people time to digest a project and the fact that it's moving forward and the changes in the project. And we weren't able to do that on this project. And I'm going to take a minute or two to talk about that. Some of the barriers and distractions, if you will, that we went through on this project for years, dealing with Illinois Department of Transportation, Federal Department of Transportation, Union Pacific Railroad, Illinois Commerce Commission, the Osage Indian Tribe, just so many impediments on this project that added to the timeline. And I don't have to tell you that anything that you bought 6-7 years ago is certainly not the same price as it is today, and that's what we're facing in this project. Most recently, we had some changes, and Ms. Reese talked about the grant amendment that we did, and most recently in the FRA with the DOJ firings, our grant administrator lost his job, I'm not sure which, and a new grant administrator was put on the job who had to get up to speed on the project and we were running into a deadline. And the deadline is if we don't start this project right away, we will not be able to complete the project or unlikely to complete the project to honor the build grant deadline that would be coming up. So it's critical that we had to move on this project. The other side of that issue is the contractors have been incredibly generous with their time and held bids longer than a contractor normally would hold a bid. But we certainly got the signal that if it was going to delay much longer, they were going to have to rebid the project. So these are issues that forced us to make a quick move on that, and that's why we've done that. So I want people to understand that is not usually our methodology or the way we approach it. But we're constrained on this, and we have no choice but to move quickly or walk away. With that, we'll go to council discussion comments. Mr. Preston.
Thanks, Mayor. I will probably take two different stabs at this, but I want to begin at least with a couple questions for staff. So one, picking up on Mayor where you just left off. So if we are this tight on a timeline, what, as it relates to our federal build grant dollars, talk me through delays on construction. We're beginning this thing at the front end of winter. I mean, surely not just our start date, but also what happens during construction and any delays that come throughout that process would equally be likely to impact this project. What does that mean? Talk us through that, please.
Sure. I see Mr. Heenan in the back. Oh, there's Mr. Otto. I'm going to invite both Mr. Heenan and Mr. Otto forward. And while they're on their way up, I will reiterate, I believe on Wednesday evening, not as direct a question, but there was a question regarding the timeline and the tight schedule. I believe Mr. Otto indicated that in order to be complete by midway or third quarter 2027, we have built a little bit of a cushion in there in case the contractor runs a little bit behind schedule. Speak to that.
Thank you, Ms. Reese. That's accurate. We do have a little bit of cushion at the back end of the contract, but time is of the essence. We anticipate some long lead times for some of the precast box, for instance, and so that's one of the reasons why it's critical to get going as soon as possible.
How much of a lead time are you talking that's built in on the back end?
We don't know for sure yet. It'll depend on schedules of precasters. The facility that the precast is completed in could be affected by winter if it's not an indoor facility. But certainly, weather's a factor, but those long lead times are a big factor. For pumps, things related to the first things that have to go in during the construction, which would be the pump station.
Yeah, and I'm sorry, not leads. How about the cushion time on the back end to account for possible delays? How much time are you talking about there?
We have a June 1st completion date by contract, and our build grant revenue service date or expiration date is September 30th of 2027.
Okay. So reconcile that, Mayor, with your comments a minute ago. If there is an extra, June, July, August, September, you have all of September. If there's an extra 4 months built in at the end, how is it that 2 weeks of a delay now is make or break on the project?
Well, since you're asking me that question, I think the other part of what I said is the fact that we're facing the very real possibility of a total rebid on the project if we don't sign a contract quickly.
So if we don't sign this tonight, our contractors have said they're going to rebid the project.
They have indicated that they're very nervous about continuing with the length of the bid that they've submitted. They haven't come right out and said that, and I'm going to have to defer to Mr. Otto because I don't talk to the contractor.
That is accurate.
What is accurate?
The contractor has not said that they would not honor the bid that was submitted, but certainly conversations have indicated that time is of the essence. They can't hold their pricing forever.
Yeah.
And sorry to interrupt, Mr. President, but in terms of, we've been sitting on their bids for a while, as council knows, because we've been waiting on finalizing the grant approval with the new dates and the new price based on the bid. And so that's what the timeline has been driven really by the grant agreement through the FRA. And we just recently received that and are concerned if we wait too much longer, then we will run into cost increases based on the unknowns of construction prices right now.
I understand that, and I appreciate that clarification. No question, time is of the essence in general, but also glad to note the contractor did not say that a 2-week delay would cause a rebidding of the project, especially as the mayor noted how quick this came up from our work session on Wednesday to now 6 votes on it 5 days later tonight, without much chance for public conversation or public input in the meantime. I want to stick with another question regarding the timeline. So in the, and it's specifically on a later item this evening on the actual amended agreement with US DOT, it states, I'm sorry, I'm going to pull this up. It's item 9 on our agenda. A lot of pages to scroll through here. All right. So on page 9 dash, I think it's 11. Let's see, 9-11. This is talking about the amended agreement with USDOT. It states for planned construction start date, October 1st of 2025 or 90 days after Amendment 1 execution, whichever is later. Is this not in reference to the item that we would be approving tonight, or that we heard back was approved from FRA in mid-October? Is the construction start date 90 days from that date, or help me reconcile that?
The language is shown on page 9-11 in the actual 2019 build grant document was put in. We submitted the grant adjustment language in, I think, first week in July with an anticipation of a quick turnaround. That didn't happen. So the 90 days, we pretty much burned through that. We were hoping for more lead time than that. The grant amendment did not get approved for well over 90 days. And so the 90-day language was put in there just to give the contractor some flexibility on mobilization and start.
Even though it says 90 days after the amendment execution, which presumably would be when we hear back from the other party in the agreement, which would be USDOT, which was October?
I guess there's two sides to that coin. The 90 days gave the contractor flexibility. If we had gotten an approved grant amendment in early July or mid-July, but now we're up against other factors besides meeting our start date by the build grant that we've already talked about in terms of contractor mobilization, lead times, and final completion dates.
Okay. One more question, and then I'll defer and I'll save some comments in for another round. Switching topics, one of the public commenters this evening, by the way, thanks to the 10 who came and spoke, multiple groups within there. Obviously, we have a full house tonight. Believe it or not, this is not how every council meeting looks. We're at standing room only in the back, but I do appreciate the interest and the passion that so many have and spoke about this evening. One of the public commenters mentioned that the food and beverage tax does not apply to groceries, and I'm wanting to get some clarification from staff or whoever can answer that. Does that include like hot food items at grocery stores? You know, go to Kroger, get rotisserie chicken. Is that kind of thing subject to food and beverage tax, or is that not?
The food and beverage tax is applicable to only food that's going to be eaten on premises there, so it's to be used right away. So if you're taking the meal home or I'm sorry, it's on premises eating, which applies to food and beverage tax.
Okay.
But restaurant, so forth.
So even hot food items at grocery stores are not included then within the food and beverage tax?
I would say they are not, no.
Okay. All right, thanks.
Thank you. Ms. Smith?
I too want to thank everybody for coming out tonight, as well as the people who took the time to write to me. I had the opportunity to read through all of the people who got it to me before 3 o'clock, and then I had to switch hats. And so I apologize if you had contacted me after 3 o'clock today. But as I mentioned, in response to individuals whose messages I did read, I wanted them to be aware that I was making a conscious effort to take in all of the feedback that was provided to me so that I could respond to some of what has been shared in concerns about this project or support. And I appreciate that the mayor has pointed out what was happening with the sparse time frame between the Wednesday work session and tonight. And as he said, there's some tight deadlines in here, but we're also, after delays, after staffing changes at the federal level, we are anxious to return a signed document so that we can be sure that we've got all of our I's dotted and T's crossed and move forward with this project. There wasn't any other reason to do that, and there wasn't a conscious indication that we wanted to prevent public input. We had those considerations to consider, and as he said, this has been a very complicated process with all of the various parties that weighed in or needed to have their items considered. And in terms of the bidders waiting, they've had their original bids into us since June. So they have held with us through this process to finalize things for more than 4 months at this point. And so we have tested their patience, and that's another reason why we wanted to have this all on the agenda tonight. And as far as town input, 2 years ago, the town of Normal made a presentation at the Illinois Municipal League Conference in Chicago in September. And at that presentation, they shared that there were 85 meetings with the public held as the town of Normal moved forward with the process for the uptown development. Now, not all of that was regarding only the underpass, but the town of Normal makes the effort to make sure that the public is involved in the process as we plan for our future. And also, as has been pointed out, and I believe it was one of the commenters, a meeting in 2017 where input was provided to us over an underpass versus an overpass. Even with the more expensive cost for the underpass, the overwhelming support was for that model. Now, for those who say that, why not just do the overpass? It's less complicated, it would be less costly. For one thing, an overpass has to be tall enough to deal with trains going through with the stacked railroad cars. So you need more height for an overpass than you need depth for the underpass. And who here hasn't witnessed a situation where an elevator doesn't work? So if you're having a backup for that overpass, you would have an incline with switchbacks, as it were, that would extend for quite a distance compared to what is built into the planning for this underpass. And the idea that the crossings at the intersections are sufficient, that may be satisfying the intent of, okay, that's a safe crossing because we have gates there. But the original idea was to provide greater ADA accessibility. I personally traveled with the Chamber of Commerce and some other town representatives from both Bloomington and Normal, looking at 2 cities in Iowa. And in some of their development, they were very cavalier about the needs of anybody with mobility issues. They knew there were in place limitations on how much outside seating you would have. But apparently there was no enforcement of that and no recognition that someone in a wheelchair or someone in a walker or someone with a stroller might struggle to get past that, or they could be grandfathered in. That still doesn't allow for the need of people with disability to be treated as first-class citizens. So this underpass is attempting to provide for that because the train station is busy. We have 12 Amtrak trains traveling through our community in the course of a day, 9 to 12 freight trains going through there. And if there are trains on both tracks, there is no use of the intersections for crossing. It does need a bypass, and the underpass does provide that. And that's not even mentioning the long-distance bus lines, Peoria Charter, and whoever succeeded, Jefferson Lines, who succeeded from the Burlington. We are working to make sure that this project is completed responsibly. And we have in the agenda tonight a contract for a project oversight so that there is a paid professional that is representing and advocating on the town that is focused on this project to see that it stays on budget, that it stays on track. And that individual, and I asked the question in preparing for tonight, will the town get regular updates? And I was assured that that will happen, that the town can stay informed of tracking, and Mr. Otto, is that correct?
That's correct.
On the website of how the project is progressing so that we do stick to that. And I heard from a businessman who was concerned about the disruption to their business on the north side of the track. The bulk of the work is taking place on the south side of the track. There will not be nearly the disruption that occurred when there was the construction that gave us the circle and the improved utilities and paving of our uptown businesses on the north side of the track. And as far as a return on investment, the EAV for the uptown area in 2003 was 14.67 million. Today, as of 2025, we're looking at equalized assessed value of 56.25 million. And I've heard questions about what's the return on investment. Well, in this 22 years since the uptown development began, we've had an increase of 238% over what we started with. I don't know that we're going to have specific projects. We can't name specific projects now. But as Mr. Penn pointed out, putting the infrastructure in place makes it more likely that we can get those individuals that are interested in it. And as far as if we don't do it now, again, how can we go back to people who helped support us, and it took us 3 years to get the largest grant here, and say, this time we won't decline it. This time we mean business. And as I pointed out in pulling the one agenda item, the prices have only gone up. Earlier on projects, earlier in the year, the beach pavement project, the council pulled it, the staff pulled it last year in the hopes that they could re-engineer that and give us a more efficient, less costly project. They put that reconfigured pavement project out to the bidders, and it came back higher this year. So pulling it now is not going to make the cost go down. And so I just want to say that we're getting the return on our investment. We're getting more visitors coming. In the month of September, we had 238,000 visits to Uptown Normal. Contrast that with Target, which had a little over 113,000. So we're getting a return on our investment with people interested in coming here. And I'm fully in support of it. I am also in support of a sunset on this particular bond issue. And I don't know if, not now, I'll take that up a later time, but somebody's giving me the hook.
Thanks, Mayor. I do have some broader thoughts and comments I want to share on the broader underpass question before us today. But I wanted to do a follow-up on a question that Mr. Preston had asked and Mr. Sheen had answered. I believe the question that was asked was about the food and beverage tax. And this is something that I honestly just had been made aware of today, is some residents had expressed concern that while the food and beverage tax, we're presenting this as something that is really only restaurants that is being hit, that there are actually like hot items at grocery stores that folks might get, rotisserie chicken, other things, that they were concerned would be impacted, which I think changes a little bit of the narrative that's been presented. And I pulled up the town's website, and it says a local 2% under food and beverage tax. It says a local 2% tax is issued on the sale of all food and alcoholic and non-alcoholic beverages that are prepared for immediate consumption, which may be consumed on and or off the premises. So as I understand it, I think the previous statement was incorrect, but would like the staff to confirm either way.
Sure, and you're correct. It gets a little murky with a grocery store or a Sam's Club Sun rotisserie chicken. I think our understanding has been in the past, interpretations have been immediate consumption, food and beverage taxes applies. On premises, it gets a little more murky because if they have a place to sit there and eat, that might trigger it. It's really probably case by case in how those different cash agencies are doing that. But I think I would default to the state to kind of give a clear answer for that. Our thoughts have always been immediate consumption and mostly on premises. But you can do takeout and take it home, and that you're being charged it then too from a local restaurant. That has come up occasionally with what I've heard from the state and with other colleagues. So I can't say with any definitiveness that yes, if you're getting rotisserie chicken from Sam's Club, if you're being charged 2% or not on that. I don't think you are. I think they mostly see it as a grocery item. It is for immediate consumption, maybe, not on premises for sure. But that does get a little murky, to be quite honest with you, and when the tax is hitting that area.
Sure. And I understand that it's a hypothetical, and that's one particular item I'm asking about. But to me, it just raises the broader concern. I think we've all acknowledged that we're rushed in coming up here tonight. I mean, my concern is we're not fully prepared tonight to vote on some of these items, and we're learning on the spot more and more about what we're voting on and how it's going to impact our constituents. I really think we need some more time to make sure we come forward, vote on everything, whether it's yes or no, fully prepared, fully understanding everything. Because I've talked to several of my colleagues today, and we're learning things just today about some of these items that we're voting on, and I just don't think that's the right way we should be approaching it. So I'd like to move to table all the items put forth.
I'm going to ask you to hold that tabling until we have an item approved. We're in discussion right now. But yeah, we'll entertain that when we get a motion on the first item.
Okay.
You can move to table.
Yeah, I think we have a motion. Angie?
Did we have a motion? Oh, okay. Excuse me.
It's okay.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Is a second on the amendment? Oh, table. I'll second.
Second on the table.
To the next council meeting in 2 weeks.
Discussion on that? Please call the roll.
Mr. Roberge,
No.
Ms. Smith,
No.
Mr. McCarthy,
No.
Mr. Preston,
Aye.
Mrs. Lorenz,
Aye.
Mr. Byers,
Aye.
Mayor Kus.
No. The motion to table fails, so continue. If you have.
Okay.
I do want to add anecdotally, I had the same concern, and my rotisserie chicken from Kroger this weekend did not have food and beverage tax. I'm not saying that's universal.
Okay. Well, thank you, and I'll direct my more generalized comments now. I'm not originally from Normal. I was originally from the Chicago suburbs. Came to ISU because at 18 years old, loved the campus, loved Uptown Normal. A lot of things drew me to want to move here in the beginning. And I chose the community, once when I came here for college, and chose it again to stay here long term with my wife after I finished school. And actually, my first year after I graduated ISU, I actually lived at the Uptown North apartment building. And so, every day, kind of walked into Uptown or went to Coffee Hound or spent a lot of time over at Maggie Miley's with friends. So the Uptown experience and the Uptown asset, I have a ton of appreciation for. And when I ran for this position, supporting smart growth of Uptown was a key part of kind of why I wanted to get involved here. The Uptown project has been really successful. I just got on the council a couple years ago, so I've got a hat tip some of my colleagues that are up here, as well as staff that have been a part of that process long before I got here. We have a really, really great Uptown Normal, and we should be really, really proud of that. And I think that in order to ensure the continued success of Uptown Normal, we need to make prudent decisions. And when I first got involved in council, when I looked at this underpass project, I thought this makes a whole lot of sense. At the time, as several commenters mentioned, we were looking at less than $3 million of local investment, and the vast majority of the investment was coming from the state and feds. To me, that was kind of a no-brainer. Okay, well, the vast majority of money we're bringing in from other places, so that made sense. But what we're looking at tonight is a materially different proposal than what has been presented to the community for many years. When the price tag 5Xs, I think our risk and reward analysis, we really need to sharpen the pencil, really understand what are we tangibly getting for that investment, knowing that the rule of opportunity cost says that the investment that we're making here, we could also make elsewhere. And so I think we need to make sure that the decisions that we're making end up being what we want for the future of Uptown. And as kind of I've evaluated the new proposal, the revised proposal with the revised financial terms and associated tax increases, I've had a chance to talk to a lot of folks in the community, and I've learned a lot from folks that are probably supportive of what's before us tonight, folks that are have concerns about what's before us tonight. But some things I found is that one, I think there's a bit of a misconception, something that I think has been crucial to kind of pushing the underpass project, and it's been mentioned several times tonight, is that the underpass project is essential to development in Uptown. And I've talked to developers, I've talked to economic developers, and that's actually not the case. I've been told numerous occasions that actually you don't need this underpass. Is it a nice to have? Yeah. But you don't need the underpass to develop Uptown South. And we have existing sites in the Trailside East and Trailside West project that I know we're working really hard to find a developer to move those projects forward. And I know we will find someone to move those projects forward. That's optimistic. Like to always glass half full. So I know we'll find a way to move those projects forward. But to me, what it highlights is that we have existing sites that are ready to be developed, and we're working to find developers for them. And there's some other sites as well, in Uptown and adjacent, including the Uptown South site that we need to finish. So one part of me says, if we want to develop Uptown South, which I do, I think it'd be awesome to have housing back there and really kind of build more foot traffic for our Uptown businesses and really kind of create Uptown. From right now, I think Uptown is primarily being used as a destination for a lot of folks in the community, but let's also make Uptown a place where people want to be. And so I think further developing Uptown is crucial to doing that and hopefully getting a lot of housing built. But we have existing sites that I mentioned that I'm confident we'll fill eventually. But right now, I think our priority, especially with all this investment we're looking to make, well, let's finish the existing developments that we already have that are ready to go. And let's look at that as our first priority, because each of those individual projects, the actual development of Uptown South, aside from the underpass, Trailside East, Trailside West, all of those projects are going to probably come forward, and the developers are going to look for millions of dollars from us to invest to help them get those projects across the finish line. And so what I'm concerned about is if the underpass is presented as the catalyst for future development, but we're going $12 million in debt for the underpass, which, as I stated, we don't need for that future development, we're just setting ourselves back financially from being ready and being willing to be agile with our funds for the future projects that are really going to create tangible value for the community. The underpass, like, I get it. At the $3 million price tag, I said, hey, let's do this. But when the price tag increases by 5X for what our investment is, I want to see us put that larger investment towards projects that create a longer-term value for the community, whether that's housing or mixed-use development within Uptown. Those types of projects, I think, are going to create a lot more long-term value for the community. And those are going to come. We're going to get those developers that come in the future, regardless of what we do tonight. It's just going to be what we do tonight. The question is, when those developers come and they ask us for financial support, what financial position are we going to be in? And tonight sets us back financially, probably from the fact that we're raising taxes and we're bonding. So feasibly in the future, we're going to be in a position where we need to write large checks. I want us to be in the best position to do that, because those future Uptown projects, what I'm hearing collectively from our community, what I'm hearing from my colleagues, is that we really are reviewing the underpass as a start for all these other projects that I think we all agree are probably more exciting. So if we know we don't need the underpass for those more exciting projects, let's focus on being ready to get those housing projects coming in, Trailside East, Trailside West, Uptown South. Let's be ready for those to come and be better prepared. I mentioned earlier on the
Mr. Byers, you exceeded your 10 minutes, so if you want to hold that and carry it over to the next, we have a.
Okay.
I had you at 11 minutes. I was giving you some leeway there.
Okay.
I'm going to go back to Ms. Smith because I obviously had a brain freeze and you could have had your amendment.
Okay, I'm in favor of having a sunset provision on the 2% increase to the hotel motel and the 0.25% increase to food and beverage that would be tied to retirement of the $12 million bond issue related to this project, because I want to see that we have a commitment that these monies are for a specific purpose, and once that purpose is satisfied, that we would no longer be collecting that tax. And I understand town staff helped draft the language, and if someone is prepared to read what that language sounds like.
In anticipation of something like this coming up at the table, Mr. Corsagrosa did prepare some language that did include a sunset provision in case council wanted to discuss that. It pertains to this specific action item, and we'll pass that around. So it's basically the same ordinance with some language about how it's only in existence for 25 years, which would be the duration of a bond issue, again, if council supports all these various items. So I'll pass these out. So, Mr. Corsagrosa, do you want to explain the language?
Sure, yeah, I'll wait till everybody has it in front of them. First page is just a quick cover page, kind of goes over it, but if you turn to the second page, you'll see the operative language of the ordinance. This mirrors the ordinance that was in the packet, almost line for line, except that it includes a sunset provision after 25 years. So you'll see in section 1 of this proposed ordinance, it keeps the rate increase from 6 to 8% for the hotel motel tax, but it states that the rate of the tax through March 31st of 2051, 25 years after the April 1st, 2026 effective date, it would be 8% for those 25 years, and then after that point, it would revert back to 6%. Likewise, in section 2, this is about the food and beverage. It maintains the 2.25% increase, but that is sunset on the same date, March 31st of 2051. Other than that, the ordinance is the same as what was in the council packet. And if you wanted to make a motion on this, you could make a motion to substitute this ordinance for what's in the council packet.
I would make a motion to vote on this amendment to the taxation so that we would incorporate this sunsetting.
Second.
Thank you. Discussion on that? Mr. Preston?
Yeah, I would just, I'd rather it have a hypothetical end date than not, but I would just draw our attention to, the date it's 25 years. We're talking March 31st of 2051. So how much of an impact this actually has, I severely question, but again, would I rather it drop in 2051 or never? I guess 2051, but what's the point?
Mr. Roberts?
So question for Mr. Hune. For a tax like this, or for a project like this, for the bonds that we're looking to have issued, is there a penalty for paying those off prematurely?
No, but the bonds will be structured to be callable at a certain date. Typically 10 years is kind of the first call date for bonds like this. So we would not be able to pay them off for the first 10 years or whenever the call date is set. After that time, there's no penalty. We can pay them off right away.
Okay, so hypothetically, if we were to generate more income from these taxes than we expected, and the estimate you had was 1.17 times?
1.12, yeah. A little over $1 million, correct.
So the estimate is that we are hoping, I hate that word in this situation, but we're estimating that the amount that will be generated by these taxes will actually be slightly greater than what is required to pay off these bonds. Is that correct?
That's correct. We structured them to have a bit of a coverage ratio to ensure we could make the payments.
So the way this is written, it looks like there's a firm date on the end of this. I looked over it very quickly, but I didn't see anything saying that it was tied to the end of paying off these bonds. Would that be a fair way to structure that verbiage to say when the bonds have matured and are paid off, is my question.
You know, Mr. Auberge, let me just comment on that briefly and say that, you know, we can do this at any point in time. The council can do that. This doesn't lock us into that. I mean, a future council could say, oh, we've got this money, let's pay the bond debt. And that would be a decision. So I don't think you really need to change that there. If we try to write too many what-ifs into this, it could get opaque.
Understood. So basically what this is saying is that no later than the date in this amendment, not anticipating, it is written into our town code that we are sunsetting this tax no later than this date. There's nothing saying we can't do that earlier.
Correct.
Mr. Byers?
Yeah, just briefly on the amendment itself. I mean, this doesn't materially change anything. I think this is a way of cleansing the palate, I guess, with the decisions that are going to be made. Ultimately, I'd rather have this than no sort of termination date. But this doesn't materially impact what we're doing tonight, I don't think.
Ms. Lorenz?
Back to a previous point that this is all feeling very rushed. I always shudder when suddenly Mr. Kurisagosa is just so ready with an amended, amendment to the motion. What is it, a 3-page document? This is a council that historically does not like to, as they say, legislate from the dais, and I feel like that's exactly what we're doing here, and this is pretty embarrassing. And for the record, I will be 86 years old when the clock turns 2051, and I certainly hope, I hope I'm on Earth, but I hope I'm not here.
Yeah, and I'll be old enough you can't count that high.
You'll still be mayor.
I just want to say, I believe this was a comment that was made at Wednesday night's work session, so this wasn't just hasty. We heard the comment at the table at the work session, so we came in prepared should it come up again.
I am in the habit of reading through the packet in advance of the meeting and sending information and questions to staff so that they are prepared to answer them instead of being put on the spot. And they were gracious enough to assist me in this language. It was not anything nefarious or attempting any subterfuge. It was just hard homework and preparation. Thank you.
Mr. McCarthy?
Thanks, Mayor. To the topic of this, the only thing I have to offer on the sunset is the impact that business owners that I've talked to in the course of my due diligence, and several business owners asked me specifically about sunset provisions and whether or not I would support it, and I told them I would if it came up. Whether that's material for them or not, I wasn't going to suggest how they run their business or what's important to them or not. I'll let them make those decisions. But several business owners did ask me about that, so I assume that that's valuable.
Thank you. Further on the item? Before we call the roll, I'm gonna throw my hat in with my council members on the left. I just don't see this as an issue in the sense that, or a help in the sense that future councils can eliminate this tax, they can raise this tax, they have the power to shorten it, they have the power to lengthen it. So, you know, I think it's a good message to send, but I just don't see that we accomplish a lot doing that. Having said that, however the majority vote is, I'm going to vote with the team. So go ahead and call the vote.
Ms. Smith?
Aye.
Mr. McCarthy?
Aye.
Mr. Preston?
Aye.
Mrs. Lorenz?
Aye.
Mr. Byers?
Aye.
Mr. Roberge?
Aye.
Mayor Kus?
Aye. That amendment is passed. We're back to the original discussion, broader discussion. And Mr. Preston, I think you had your hand up for round two? Oh, I'm sorry. Ms.
But nor
Lorenz.
has Mr. McCarthy.
Go ahead.
Okay. I have a couple of questions that I'll just take with this one, and if time, maybe talk a little bit about an issue of priorities and opportunity costs. Couple of questions. What is the total principal and interest of these bonds? So it's $14 million that we're borrowing, and what will it take to pay that back?
12 million is
12
the
million.
principal that we're borrowing for.
Okay.
The interest rate has not been determined yet because we haven't gone to market. It'll likely be around 4.3 to 4.5% roughly. We'll be making an $870,000 payment per year for 25 years to pay them off. That'll be between principal and interest, but I can't tell you exactly what it should be in that total yet.
But we could jump in. So the principal and interest payments, the debt service about 870,000 based on our assumption of what the interest rates will be. But as we shared with council, we have a debt service ratio of about 1.1 to 1.2%. So we're shooting for revenue of about $1 million to cover our debt service ratios each year.
$1 million each year. I do the math, 875 times 25 years is almost $22,000. That sound about right?
22 million.
22 million, yeah. I don't work in this.
That sounds about right. It's typically at that length of debt, it's kind of a one for one in terms of principal and interest. So 12 million to 22, we're a little bit shy of that.
Okay. I just wanted that out on the record. Second question I have is what if, and I realize it's a what if question, but what if the money that's been allotted and allocated to this project through build gets clawed back? Because we are not getting a check, as I understand it, from the federal government for the build grant. We are turning in receipts and it's drawing down. Is that correct?
Correct.
What if, and there's crazy things are happening at the national level, what if the money from the build grant goes away? Who's on the hook for the remaining $20 million?
I think I can answer that one in the sense that those are dollars considered by the federal government obligated. So they are committed and they are assigned to this project by law. So if there were an attempt to undo that, it would be a lawsuit. And we would likely prevail because those dollars are obligated by law.
It's a rhetorical question, but I think there's a lot of people working for the Department of Education and various other federal agencies that thought that they had money obligated as well.
That is not true. If money has been obligated, no, if money has been obligated, those dollars go forward. If the money is yet to be obligated or has been approved, then it can be clawed back or eliminated. But if the dollars have been obligated, it's legally required to submit those dollars to the project. And I've seen this on a lot of Amtrak projects. We had the same question. And we were told, you've got dollars that are not obligated, and you may lose that, but the dollars that have been obligated are contractually obligated and have to be paid.
So, if I have still time on the clock, I'll talk a little bit about, the opportunity cost of this. We've got a representation here from our local labor workforce. And thank you for coming out here tonight to show your support for local projects. This is one 18-month project. It's going to tie up funds for those 18 months for this multi-million-dollar project. And there will be people that cut their teeth on this project, and there will be people, as Mr. Paul said, I believe, who will retire on this project. It's a little bit of a would-you-rather game. Would you rather that one 18-month project? Or would you rather maybe multiple projects that we won't be able to do if we tie up all of our money in this project. I'm talking, I'm not sure that we do this. But to clarify, I'm talking about the opportunity cost of a major project like this. Take it to your household budget, right? Do you make an investment in buying a new car? Maybe you do. But then that means you forego some other projects, maybe around the house. I'm drawing that comparison about an opportunity cost with a project this massive and requiring 5 times what we thought of local resources. Will it hamstring us from being able to invest, to Mr. Byers' point, in projects for housing developments? Most of these developers, whether it be for residential or mixed use, are coming to us with their hand out needing at least $1 million to get it across the finish line. So there is an opportunity cost here at play. We've got several from the fire union here. Same thing. Okay, we do this project, we talk about the growth that it's going to bring to the community. That's great. You're talking right now about not being able to cover adequately our entire town with current resources of 3 stations and the number of apparatus that you have. If we grow, it would stand to reason that we may need a 4th fire station. I think they've got some studies that show that. Will we be able to go into more debt to build presumably a 4th station if we've disposed of the current one that will be taken offline later this year on College and Blair? Will we be able to go into debt like we had to for the new East Side station to be able to build that, to meet the growing needs of this community? This is the trade-off that's going on here. And as has been said already, when it was $3 million, 10%, a small amount from the local match, it seemed, risks, reward outweighed the risks. The scale has tipped quite a bit. And I think we have to, as a council, keep those sort of strategic thoughts in mind. And while it may have been for a number of years on a strategic plan, elements of this particular project have changed significantly. And I'll finish with words that we all received from a former council member who served, I think, at least a decade or more up here. At the very least, apply the brakes on tax increases to fund the underpass. You also need to discuss moving on without it. Plenty of developable parcels without going south. This amount of local contribution and the total cost were not part of the plan. It was a very wise person that sat here for many, many years on this council, and I'm glad his voice has come to light again. Thank you.
Mr. McCarthy.
Thanks, Mayor. I'd start off by thanking everybody for coming. A lot of passion on both sides of this topic. And for those that have reached out to us or me specifically by email and phone, I've had quite a number of conversations since Wednesday night last week or from people who are have opinions on both, for and against, and even those who are undecided that wanted to hear what my thoughts were. All of that interaction, whether you told me you didn't agree with me or you did, helped make me smarter about making good decisions for our community up there. So I sincerely thank everybody who's given me input. I have talked to a lot of people. I've talked to certainly current business owners from the past who were here when the original Uptown project started 25 years ago, or a little over, or a little less than that. I've talked to certainly past council members one that was just mentioned, and others who were here at the dais when they made the vote for Uptown. I've talked to infrastructure development folks, community development folks, to get their perspective on why this does or does not look like the opportunity that we were faced 25 years ago when I wasn't fortunate enough to be here to take that vote to understand what the risks were and the possible rewards, to try to get smarter about that. A bit of history. I appreciate, Ms. Reese, you giving us a little bit of a history on this, but I do want to remind of one thing that hasn't been discussed is we ended up at this entire conversation because at the behest of the Illinois Department of Transportation, the railroad, and Amtrak, they urged us, implored us, that we needed to create a grade separation crossing across the tracks. And that was moving forward until an Uptown 2.0 development project or reimagining came along, and then Ms. Reese gave the rest of the history about that the public, and I think Mr. Dullard, I believe, mentioned the public support for and acknowledgement of the increased cost of an underpass project. I guess I just want to level set. You know, as I've talked to people and hearing some of the comments tonight, there's seems to be a number of assumption and statements about what we need and what we don't need. And looking forward, all of that with certainty requires a crystal ball. Certainly, this project, from its inception, when we involved the public, was never a lowest common denominator idea. This wasn't a, let's build something for the fewest number of people in our community for the lowest cost, and that's our goal. That's never what this was about. This was a transformational infrastructure project and a quality of placemaking project from the minute we asked the public to undertake this project. And so that's what this has always been about. I also talked to developers and point blank asked probably a similar question to my colleagues, is this required for you to develop? And certainly I heard no. But that wasn't the end of the comment or the conversation from developers. The rest of the comment and the rest of the conversation was, but it sure would help me get the project done and be successful. And that's why I'm talking about, let's level set about what this project really is about. And it's not just about getting Amtrak passengers safely across the tracks. It was intended and conceived of to be much more than that. Certainly to be infrastructure catalyst, as Mr. Penn mentioned and others. Certainly it is all about safety that some other commenters who were against it made this about. But it wasn't the lowest common denominator project that some are angling this conversation to be in opposition to this. It was always something bigger. And those goals, I think, are just as valid today, if not more, than they were 8, 10 years ago when this project was undertaken and we got public input on about what we should be doing here, rather than just a minimal, lowest common denominator, help only one group of people project. We heard that loud and clear from the public. And so I think those goals are still alive, still important, it's still valid. That hasn't changed. What has changed? Cost. Cost. I've heard more about cost than probably any other thing in the last 5 days of talking to, excuse me, dozens and dozens and dozens of people. So let's talk about that. Let's talk about that. I've heard this isn't the good deal. Certainly, I agree with my colleague. I think, Mr. Byers, you said this, but when it looked like it was 90% funded from dollars outside of our community, or 92 or whatever the percentage was back then, when it was only $2.9 million of local, that was a no-brainer. I agree. I don't know why we would oppose, 90-some% of a transformational infrastructure project being funded by outside. I don't know. But does that make this a bad deal now that it's not 90 or 95% funded from outside? We've heard staff reports. We all saw the GLT article with the table grid saying how much is coming from where and how much it's gone up for local. I do want to emphasize that even in a narrow view, 63% of this project is being funded with dollars that are currently outside of our community. Now let's pause about that. A major infrastructure project being funded over half from dollars outside of our community is still a great deal for this community. Still is. Now, that's a very narrow view. I appreciate, I don't want to raise taxes. I appreciate the comment about where it's coming from and the like. I also appreciate the challenge from staff. I asked the question, did we consider other options? And I'll have Ms. Reese comment on that shortly when I have some questions. But if it's true that the majority of our hotel and motel tax is being paid from those people outside of our community, then greater than 63% of this project is being funded by money that's currently outside of our community. So I still think that this is a good deal and good value for the taxpayers of Normal and a transformational project more broadly. Will it make a difference? According to the developers I spoke to, it will. Is it absolutely necessary? No. But in a development environment that we have today, where housing is difficult to get done, why are people going to choose Uptown Normal versus someplace else? Because of a differential transformational project like this, it makes Uptown Normal look far different than every other community in our peer circle that's trying to get projects like this done in theirs. It's a differentiator for us. Again, taxes are never easy. My colleague talked about opportunity cost. Certainly, the opportunity cost of saying no tonight is $22.5 million. Plain and simple. We've already sunk $3 million in grants. So if you add that up, we'd lose the value of $25 million for saying no. Plain and simple, hard dollars. Part of our responsibility as your elected officials in government is when the federal and state government are handing out grants to do infrastructure project, we better be in line. And we better be asking for that dollars to bring back to the projects here. When we say no, that money's going to some other community to do somebody else's infrastructure project, not in ours. And that's what's going to happen if we say no. So when we talk about the broader sense beyond dollars for the opportunity cost is, what if we don't do the underpass? Will developers still? Maybe. Will it be harder for them? From what I was told, it would be easier if this project was here and make their success more likely. But is it absolutely required? No. That's what I heard from developers, the full conversation. I think we miss out on that transformational project that goes beyond the two concepts that we're talking about, passengers across the tracks and development. It is also bike and pedestrian infrastructure. We heard from some of those folks today. It is safety. It is visitors who come here from out of town who want to explore. It's also an easy way to get across. I was talking to a resident who said, Kevin, I'm on the fence about this. Something I never considered. I got off the Amtrak the other night, and I had all my stuff in my backpack, and I'm pretty able-bodied. But when I walked all the way down to Linden Street and all the way around to my car, that is a very long way to go. And I'm young, and I'm able-bodied. But if I wasn't so young or so able-bodied, and I had a suitcase that I was dragging behind me, that would be a very difficult proposition, and it was something I never considered before. So those are still very noble and good goals, I believe. So I've probably talked to more people leading up to this decision than probably any other decision in my 13 years here on this council, because I think this has long-range implications. People talk about data, and there is or there isn't, and we can't prove that will or won't. We're sitting in a maybe. Everything in Uptown was a maybe. Was the Uptown Circle required for people to build stuff here? No. Are businesses thriving as a result of it? Absolutely. Are there concerts, musics? Are people come to Uptown and spend money here? Absolutely, because of it. Will this be the same? There's a risk. There's absolutely a risk to this. There is no major infrastructure, public infrastructure project that doesn't have a risk. But there is a difference. There is a difference with this than 25 years ago when that council made those decisions to move forward on this infrastructure. And the difference is that Uptown exists, and Uptown is very successful. Back then, we were hanging on potential. That council made votes on potential. There is already a very successful thing here in the community, and the potential for this to leverage and grow more success is much more likely than before. There's no guarantee, though. It's definitely an expensive project. Thank you. Oh,
I'm gonna have to get- You've hit your
all right, I'll come back.
11-minute limit.
Thanks,
Yeah,
man.
but
Sorry for going long.
Yeah, I'll come back round two.
I will. Thank you.
Mr. Preston.
Thanks. You know, I kind of like the tone established by Mr. McCarthy about level setting and specifically quality of life and quality of place that he ended up on, so I will pick up there. I actually view this underpass differently. I value quality of life, value quality of place. I think that transformational projects there can be good transformational projects, and there can be bad or wasteful or a net negative transformational projects. But I do care about quality of life and quality of place. And one of the things that I think is missing or has been missing from this public conversation on the underpass is that the current plaza that we have between this building and next door at the Children's Discovery Museum is going to, I think it's nice. It looks great. It's open. It's accessible. It is a great welcoming space. It ties in the trail. It is not a problem that we are trying to fix. It is, in my view, a great asset to Uptown, to our quality of life and place that we would be destroying with this action tonight. We'd be ripping all that up and going underground to something different. I also think that, a lot of the pitch for a transformational project, something that makes Normal and Uptown special, specifically in this project, talks about what we're going to do on the south side of the tracks. And there is nothing whatsoever stopping the town of Normal from creating a new, unique, awesome park-like space that borders up to the south side of the tracks without there having to be an underpass as part of it. That is something that you can tie in public art. We could tie in a stage for entertainment or events. You can tie in natural playground, food truck space, whatever. It's endless opportunities, but having that conversation and having a transformational project that also makes sense is something I think we'd really be missing out on. If we did so in a way with this underpass, we'd be stuck to having to be a tiered, ramping up space rather than having more flexibility to create something truly unique and special that creates more of a blank canvas for us to express all the great culture that this community has to offer. So I'm glad that part of it did come up. I think that's important to talk about, but that doesn't just look in a very narrowly focused way that it's either accomplished or not. There are multiple ways that quality of life and quality of place are accomplished toward the same end goal of supporting a great community like this one. Next, I want to talk about the economic development case. We have zero hard data that says this underpass will be the catalyst for development on the south side of the tracks. It is a nice to have, and it is. It's nice to have. But there is nothing. There's not a single developer or employer that is lining up. We're waiting. Maybe there's somebody here tonight. Please speak up if so. But who is lining up and saying, I want to invest in Uptown South, but the only reason I'm not is because there's not an underpass. Once there is, that's the difference maker. We have yet to hear that from anybody. And I would welcome, seriously, if such a employer or developer exists, to come out. We'd love to have you and talk about it, and love when people invest in Normal. But the economic development case is just not a one-for-one, and frankly, an additional $12 billion, there are a lot of ways that could be more impactful in terms of a result, more development, more infrastructure work, more opportunity and growth other than putting it towards this underpass. There's a lot of ways the additional $12 million could be spent to have a higher impact on economic development than this proposal. Taking a step back a little bit, what's the need? Comment was made earlier that we have been, I think it was implored to look at doing a grade separation by either the state or Union Pacific. The town of Normal is under zero obligation to do anything. We are not required by anybody to take any action, grade separated, over, under, nothing at Uptown Station. The option of us saying we want to keep the Mark Peterson Plaza as it is right now, we want to utilize the trail that goes down to Linden and comes across, there's sidewalk on Broadway on the other side, and continue to focus on Uptown South without creating an underpass. There's nothing stopping us from doing that whatsoever. So that is just as much an option as anything else, but surprisingly, that's something that I know in the public conversation, the larger public conversation, it's, I think, kind of gotten missed. We've talked about the tax increases, obviously, throughout this. The only point that I really want to harp on with that is there are a lot of people who are battling the affordability crisis right now. Prices have gone up, especially with the federal government shutdown. Things are expensive. They continue to go up. And while would, $2 on a hotel room or a little bit on food and beverage, is that a make or break for somebody? No, it probably isn't in a singular case. But the continued add of increased costs, increased taxes on people, it just has to stop. It has to stop somewhere. And the amount of affordability crisis that people are facing, I think it would be quite a step of leadership for us to address that and do so in this action tonight, at least for the next 25 years. I know thereafter this will sunset, but that's that, I guess. Overall, well, let me also highlight something else too. I see a lot of orange in the room tonight, and I have a ton of respect for laborers. Ronnie, I appreciate you coming up and speaking, for all you guys being here, and of course the legend, Mr. Penn. And important to me personally to say to all the laborers and the guys who this will be your job, for the next 18 months, that I am not supporting this, but that is in no way, for me personally, a reflection on how I feel about supporting labor, the value you bring, and the projects that we have that continue to be jobs. And I hope that those continue as much, if not more so, than they have up to this point. And to that end, I will just highlight a final thing. The additional $12 million that we are talking for this underpass, if you look at our entire transportation budget in our CIP from next 5 years, 2026 through 2030, each year our transportation, so roads, sidewalks, the like, infrastructure work, local dollars, annually varies between 5.8 million to the highest year in the next 5 years is 11 million of local dollars. Adding $12 million to one of those could double or triple our investment in all other transportation things in the town of Normal for a year. It could double it for 2 years, 2 year, like each. That kind of thing on work that I think would be more impactful and just candidly makes more sense, makes more common sense, is what I would support. And this underpass doesn't do it for all the reasons I expressed. Thanks.
Mr. Byers.
Thanks, Mayor. I'll perhaps just provide kind of a conclusion to some of my thoughts. Fundamentally, when we take this vote tonight, I think we have to ask, is the $15 million town contribution, and specifically the $12 million that we're bonding for tonight and the taxes we're using to cover that debt service, is that money the best and highest use for our community? When we're talking about debt, we're talking about raising taxes, we're making it clear that this is a very high priority for us. And that's funds that we could spend on housing, infrastructure, public safety. I think what's been lost in a lot of the focus on the federal grant money that we're getting is ultimately what we could control here tonight is whether or not we bond for 12 million or not. And certainly accepting, the agreements, with the feds. But we have to think about overall what is creating more value for our community, all things considered. Does the $12 million going towards housing developments or other projects in the community without federal support, is that a better use than the $12 million towards the underpass, even with the state and federal revenue? I believe the case is pretty clear that that the case is yes. I think that taking that 12 million, even without state and federal revenue coming in for those other projects, we could create long-term housing for our community. We can invest in public safety. We can invest in other projects that I think, while the cost associated with them, that's what we're talking about. We're talking about the money we're getting from the state and feds. They're contributing towards the construction cost. I think that there's a compelling case that that $12 million can actually get us a lot more bang for our buck being used in other projects, even without the federal incentives. And I know that we've kind of talked a lot back and forth about the economic development perspective of the underpass. Fundamentally, if what we're hanging our hat on with this project is we just can't stomach the federal support not coming towards this project, I don't think that that's a compelling enough case, as I just said. Ultimately, I'm concerned that tonight's vote, we're falling into kind of a sunk cost fallacy. We see funds that have been committed, some by us, some by states, some by feds, and we've got to put a whole lot more in to try to realize the value of those other funds. But again, it's a sunk cost fallacy because we could decide tonight whether we put 12 million in or don't put 12 million in. And there's another maybe little funner concept I'd like to talk about for anybody that plays poker. There's something called the commitment fallacy. And the commitment fallacy is when there's chips on the table, and I don't encourage gambling or anything like that, but I've played Hold'em here or there. When there's chips on the table, whether it's yours or other chips are in the pot, ultimately you have to make a decision with the hand you have. Is this the right hand to play, and is it the right decision to put more chips on the table? Let's not put all of our chips on the table when I don't think that this is the right hand for us to play. In conclusion, I think all of my colleagues have agreed this project is not required for us to develop Uptown further. I want to see us develop Uptown further, but we've got to do it the right way. So let's turn tonight into a redirection. I think we could take a really positive vote tonight. I know that sometimes voting no can be viewed as negative or being Debbie Downer, but I think there's an opportunity tonight to vote no, and let's redirect, and let's freaking laser focus on Trailside East, Trailside West, Uptown South without the underpass, and some of the other sites that we have. Let's laser focus on some things that can really bring in some long-term value for our community. We could turn tonight from what I think is a massive financial mistake into a really positive future for our community. So let's vote no tonight for a positive future for the community. Thanks.
Ms. Smith.
Mayor, could you please address Mr. Preston's assertion that it is not necessary for us to have an accessible access to the south tracks?
I think I'll let you take that. And I'm in agreement with you, by the way.
I bristle at the idea that those of us who have mobility challenges should not be considered when we make decisions. I've spoken up when we've talked about making playgrounds more accessible to our handicapped children. I don't think anyone should have to make a decision about where they go as to whether or not they can get and use the facilities that are there. Several years ago, when the Connect Transit was looking at what they should do with their routes and with their fares, someone asked the question about which bus stops need to be handicap accessible. And I was an observer, but I wanted to come out of my chair screaming, all of them. Someone should not have to build their life around a limited number of spaces where a decision has been made that that person has the right to access all of the services that all of us take for granted. And as far as prioritizing roads, I don't know of many people who make a decision about where they want to live by saying, let's move to this community. I understand they have great roads. They want to move and live somewhere where there is something to do in the community. We found that out with COVID. And the Constitution Trail that had been reviled when it was first imagined, it became a valuable resource because it provided the opportunity to get out and exercise and respect the concerns about keeping distance. I intentionally bought a house with my husband that backs up to the Constitution Trail. When it was a railroad, I can see where it might not have been a very attractive address, but I have a deep lot and I have access out my back door to a park that connects throughout the community. I think this underpass represents something that will provide that to us. It is not just a tunnel. It is giving us an amphitheater space, our uptown events, Make Music Normal, Day of Play, the Sugar Creek's Arts Festival, the Sweet Corn Circus. Those are at capacity now with vendors saying, hey, what do you mean you're closed? You can't let me in. I've already shared with you that we have an abundance of people coming to our uptown, which was not the case in 2003 when everything started. This is providing us an opportunity safely to expand what we consider as uptown. Thank you.
Mayor, I know I've gone twice, but since I was specifically addressed, I need to respond.
Make it very short.
I will. My comment had nothing to do with accessibility or people who face that, and you know it didn't. I'm specifically quoting a WGLT article from March of this year that said one of the assumptions on this underpass project is that Normal is somehow legally required to build an underpass or an overpass. It is not. WGLT checked with town Normal officials who confirmed there's no agreement in place that requires construction of any sort of pedestrian rail crossing, which is what I said. There are constraints, but the constraints would not stop Normal leaders from just doing nothing. It is optional. I don't like what that accusation was aimed toward me. My mom spent her career as a special ed teacher. That is something I personally am passionate about, and suggesting that it was an accessibility issue that I was talking about is just wrong. It's just wrong.
Let's turn the volume down on this as we go forward, please. Mr. Roberge.
I'll try and keep this brief. So just for a little bit of timeline explanation of this, my understanding, I've only lived in Normal since 2018. This project goes beyond my time of living in this town. Mr. Otto, when was the underpass initially proposed? Was it 2015 that we first came to that and became a priority project 2017? Is that my understanding?
I'm going to jump in, and my computer went dead, so I can't look at my notes, but I think it was 2013, 2014 where we were focused on an overpass.
Okay.
And then we did the Uptown South master planning process, got public input, and that was in 2015 and 2016. When we adopted the plan in early 2017, that incorporated the public feedback during the master planning process, where the public clearly rejected the overpass concept and asked council to reconsider the plan and come in with an underpass. After that, then we focused the project team on designing an underpass, presented options to council. That in the council at that time, I believe it was late 2017, landed on this underpass concept where the south side of the tracks included an amphitheater and public space.
Okay, so my understanding with that timeline, 2017, when we started. So that's also when we started applying for funds from the federal government to pay for this, correct?
Correct. We applied for a build grant fund, and it was awarded in 2019.
And that was the third try, is my understanding.
I believe so, yes.
So, and the assumed town cost at the time was $3 million. When that happened, is my understanding from our discussion here tonight, and from the notes that we had upcoming the meeting. Got the grant award in 2019. Had to work with the railroad to, obviously 2019 is right before the pandemic happened, so everything kind of came to a stop. Working with the railroad and other various stakeholders, 2022, 2024 to get this approved. Costs going up because of the pandemic, other factors. Two constants in life, death and taxes. I'd say inflation is also pretty constant. That the price tag is always going to go up on things. It's never really going to go down. Well, we got this $13 million from the federal government, other various state grants, paying for more than half of this project. If we were to turn away from this tonight and revisit this at a later date, we can only assume that that cost is going to go up yet again, and that federal money that we have for this project is gone, and the earliest we could even think about applying for anything like that again would be 2029 at the soonest. And even then, as we've seen before, there's zero guarantee that that would even happen. So, the way I see it, we're really looking at now or never for this. And there's no revisiting this down the road. So, with that in mind, and the fact that we have the opportunity here to, at minimal tax increases, to fund this project, be fiscally responsible for paying for this project when we are accepting it. And we have this money that has been dedicated, been obligated to us from the federal government. It seems to me like this is a pretty easy decision to move forward and take advantage of the resources that have been put in front of us to move forward with this project that we've been trying to do already for 12 years. And so like I said, I moved here in 2018. My wife grew up here. I didn't grow up here. When we decided to come back here, it was because of how much she loved this town. And I've come to love this town as well. And it is because of the things we have in this town that make us unique. Things like the Uptown and what we're looking at with this project and the further expansion into the Uptown South. So I appreciate the hard work that's gone into this for a really long time. And I urge my colleagues to vote yes on this.
Ms. Lorenz?
My second swipe at the apple. We only get 2 chances to talk up here. So I want to bring up something that maybe is getting buried, don't bury the headline, so to speak. And my colleague, Mr. Roberge, just said something to the effect of minimal tax increases. Said nobody ever. It's been said already up here, the 2 hours we've been together, about increasing costs of living, of groceries, SNAP benefits, up in the air, at risk, cost of health insurance going up. I mean, it's not good, right? Locally here, we've increased taxes. We maintained the grocery tax, had an opportunity to get rid of that, kept it. We've increased our sales tax recently through a recent election. Kind of line item by line item, we'll oftentimes say, oh, but look, we're lower than Champaign on food and beverage, or we're lower than Decatur on this or that. And all of those things are true on a line item basis. But you talk about chips on a table, I'm talking all in. All in to live here is getting pretty darn unaffordable. And we talk about people wanting to come here and this project being a catalyst and a transformational opportunity for people to live here, when frankly it's unaffordable. In a few weeks we'll all be back here to talk about your property tax. That's not going down. I can guarantee you that. So, property tax, sales tax. We had a person, I think, speaking on behalf of the hotel industry. You're going to lose your competitive advantage. Was the CVB, the Convention Visitor Bureau, I don't believe they're here tonight. I do see the Chamber of Commerce represented. I see several small business owners here. But our Convention Visitor Bureau, who worked tirelessly to bring things like IHSA tournaments and other conventions for our community, they just lost their competitive advantage that we were at 6% instead of 8% like some of our nearby communities. Chances are we won't have them anymore. The local merchants who are here tonight, you guys are having a hard enough time. A lot of it was post-pandemic, all of the inflation that we've just been talking about. You're having a hard enough time making ends meet and keeping your doors open. And now people are going to be charged even more to go out. Chances are you may start to lose lose business. You know, we might play that reel forward, you know, you may go out of business. I hope that's not the case, but if we continue to just make it more and more and more expensive to live here, I don't care what kind of transformational project we have. And frankly, let's not lose sight of the fact that it's a tunnel and a park on the other side. That's what we're building. A tunnel and a park, green space. A $40 million tunnel and park. No guarantees that that means development on the other side. But I think it's certain, with more certainty, I feel that it limits our ability to do other things, as mentioned here about, you know, doubling down on really getting Trailside East and West going, or some of those housing projects to help them get across the finish line, or buying a new ladder truck that needs replacement now for our fire department. These are the opportunity costs that will be limited or altogether not done. So I don't want to bury the lead, and it is part of the lead, that this is about raising taxes, and that is not a good thing.
Mr. McCarthy? Excuse me.
Thank you, Mayor. Waiting my turn. Okay. Again, I think we're hearing comments made with certainty about the future, without a crystal ball to say what will or won't, what do we need, what do we don't. Some of the comments tonight about this or that, don't do that before this is done. And do we need this to catalyze future development or not? If that was the approach we took 25 years ago, Uptown development investment never would have happened. Just want to remind everybody, $85 million of public money was invested in Uptown. $85 million. That's a lot of money. A lot of that needed to get done anyway. 100-year-old sewers, water infrastructure, some of that would have been spent anyway. But that is catalyzed. There was no data. There was no data said, if you build it, they will come. But it's produced at conservative estimates from last remembered, somebody correct me, please, if I'm materially off, but somewhere in the neighborhood of 225 to 250 million of private investment in Uptown, with no guarantee that it would ever be successful. And so there are no certainties. There is risk, absolutely. Always has, always will be, particularly in large infrastructure projects. The question is, if you're going to try to do transformational, some are going to argue whether it is or it isn't, is Tinley Park's wildly successful 25-foot wide, 12-foot tall transit underpass, was it crucial? Tinley Park will tell you it was for their metro station there. Out of 263 metro systems or stations, excluding the ones downtown Chicago that are the busiest, it's the 17th busiest. Partly in result because people come there because it's easy to get on and off, and because of the accessibility of the pedestrian access from Central Business District to both sides of the tracks. They would tell you that infrastructure investment was very much worth it. I'm not going to pretend that I have a crystal ball. I'm not. All I can say is the difference between this project and the start and the inception of Uptown is that Uptown is already here and already successful in proof of concept. And we can leverage that forward. And so if you believe in continuing to invest in our future, we can't wait till 2 projects on East and West are done and then hope we figure out how to get money, 65% or more of the project paid by somebody else. So I agree with my colleague. It's really now or never. I don't think whether or not, our ICC commitment to build something commits us or not, or just the state looks at us and says, yeah, you guys asked for money and we gave you 6.2 and you said no. Probably not going to consider you next time. I don't know. I sat in the FRA meeting and listened to FRA on the second no, and I listened to what they had to say. And it was very much about our persistence and our commitment about making a project happen. And I think that that's what this takes. I don't take raising taxes lightly. As a small business owner, I don't take lightly the cost of what I'm doing going up. The reality is it has, just like everybody else's business. But I do think this is a once-in-a-lifetime project. And I think it is an investment in the future. And I think a majority of the cost being paid for with dollars outside of our local economy is a great financial deal. But is not the only deal. Is not the only deal. A park on the south is not the same as a connection. It is not the same, and it is different by one citizen telling me his experience about Amtrak. It is different, people having a short walk and a willingness to do so because it's warm and inviting and nice, than walking around through, no offense to the businesses on Beaufort, but walking behind a dumpster and walking along the train tracks. That is not the same experience. Not even close. And so when we're talking about attraction, when we're talking about quality of place, when we're talking about transformational projects, deducing it down to its bare essence and saying, well, let's just do this little thing and it's the same. It's not. It is not. So for me, as I said earlier, this is one of the more difficult decisions I've been asked to make in my career here. I appreciate that there's risk. From talking about everybody that I could from before, the risks seem similar, but with a better chance of outcome. I think the project goals are still valid and worthwhile to do beyond a lowest common denominator project to something transformational that benefits everybody in our community, not just a small, small swath of the population. And so considering all of those things, I've decided to support this project tonight. Thanks.
I think I'll make a few comments, and you kind of led me into it there, Mr. McCarthy, in terms of that, and then we'll take the vote. I first got involved, in local government in 2001, so I've seen a lot of what's happened in this community in that. And I remember early on there was a project that people said there was no need for, and it was misplaced. It was the wrong place to do it. The market didn't need it. The market didn't want it. And that was the hotel in Uptown Normal. And now we have 2 hotels in Uptown Normal. Another project that came along that people thought was completely ridiculous, they agreed that changing a Y intersection into a circle was a good idea for traffic, but why in the goodness sake would you put water in the middle of that? That's just stupid. And I think we know how successful that project is. Another project that people said was misplaced, didn't belong in Normal, was not the right location because of the university, because of the train tracks. You shouldn't do it. That was the Children's Discovery Museum. And so I think the takeaway from this, for me, that hasn't been brought out tonight, is that the people that did that, Summer, you're still at the table, but our town staff is steeped in that experience of seeing these projects, of designing these projects, of making sure that financially they're safe. They didn't say they're guaranteed, but they made sure that they were as safe as they possibly could. And they're sitting in the audience right now, the people that did these projects. So they give me confidence. And I know that they would come to me and say, this is just way too shaky. We can't do this. But they haven't done that because they did the work to make sure it wasn't. And I think we need to point that out. The transportation element of this is more important than you would think it is. The number of people that come through Uptown Station is we're the second busiest stop in the state of Illinois. And to make that even better for our people that are traveling on that and to get increased ridership is to have that free flow back and forth, because when you have two trains in that intersection, which happens often, I'm in Uptown every day, I see it. When you have two trains in that intersection, you're not going anywhere. You're not going to Linden Street. You're not going to Broadway. You're stuck. So that's another part of the issue. And then I think in a broader sense, some of the things that we've done as a community over the past 25 years for the working people in our community, the laborers, plumbers and pipe fitters, the electricians, we have steadily done things that have not given these people jobs. It's given these people careers where they can raise a family, where they have dependability of work in their community, and they're benefiting their community, and they're proud of the work they do. We can't overestimate that. There's no way we can overestimate that. It is so important as the fabric of our community to have that in our community. So, as Kevin pointed out, this is not a project without risk, but it's been thoughtfully addressed, thoughtfully looked at, and we think it is going to bring benefit to the community for years and years to come. Please call the roll on item 7.
I have a procedural question, if I may. This appears to be a 3-3 tie, at least based on comments. I want to make sure with our legal counsel that you are not in any sort of conflict of interest, Mr. Mayor, if you are casting the deciding vote, being that this is a pedestrian and bicycle amenity.
I won't take offense to that. It is not.
I can confirm as much. Yeah, Amtrak doesn't have any sort of interest in the underpass. It will be owned by the town.
Okay. I didn't mean to cause any offense. I just want to be
none taken.
On the right side of procedure.
Please call the roll.
Mr. McCarthy,
Aye.
Mr. Preston,
No.
Mrs. Lorenz,
No.
Mr. Byers,
No.
Mr. Roberge,
Aye.
Ms. Smith,
Aye.
Mayor Kus.
Aye. That item is approved. Item 8 is an ordinance authorizing the issuance, of general obligation bonds in the aggregate principal amount not to exceed $12 million to fund the underpass project and public facility infrastructure or redevelopment or improvement projects. Please call the roll.
Move approval.
Second.
Thank you.
Mr. Preston,
No.
Mrs. Lorenz,
No.
Mr. Byers,
No.
Mr. Roberge,
Aye.
Ms. Smith,
Aye.
Mr. McCarthy,
Aye.
Mayor Kus.
Aye. That ordinance is approved. Item 9 is a resolution authorizing the execution of a modified grant agreement with the United States Department of Transportation under the fiscal year 2019 Build Transportation Grants Program for the underpass project at Uptown Station. Motion for approval.
Move approval.
Second.
Thank you. Please call the roll.
Mrs. Lorenz,
No.
Mr. Byers,
No.
Mr. Roberge,
Aye.
Ms. Smith,
Aye.
Mr. McCarthy,
Aye.
Mr. Preston,
No.
Mayor Kus.
Aye. That item is approved. We have a resolution to accept bids and award a contract to Millstone Weber LLC for the underpass at Uptown Station project in the amount of $32,064,300.
Move for approval.
Second.
Thank you. Please call the roll.
Mr. Byers,
No.
Mr. Roberge,
Aye.
Ms. Smith,
Aye.
Mr. McCarthy,
Aye.
Mr. Preston,
No.
Mrs. Lorenz,
No.
Mayor Kus.
Aye. That item is approved. Item 11 is a resolution to approve an engineering services agreement with Clark Dietz Incorporated for Phase 3 construction engineering services for the underpass at Uptown Station project.
Move for approval.
Second.
Please call the roll.
Mr. Roberge,
Aye.
Ms. Smith,
Aye.
Mr. McCarthy,
Aye.
Mr. Preston,
No.
Mrs. Lorenz,
No.
Mr. Byers,
No.
Mayor Kus.
Aye, that resolution is approved. And the final one in this underpass project is a resolution to approve an engineering services agreement with WSP USA for construction engineering support services for the underpass project at Uptown Station.
Move for
Approval.
approval.
Second.
Please call the roll.
Ms. Smith,
Aye.
Mr. McCarthy,
Aye.
Mr. Preston,
No.
Mrs. Lorenz,
No.
Mr. Byers,
No.
Mr. Roberge,
Aye.
Mayor Kus.
Aye, that resolution is approved. Item 13 is an ordinance providing for the issuance of an amount not to exceed $43,675,000 in general obligation refunding bonds, Series 2026, to be used to refund the town's Series 2013, 2014, 2016A, 2016B, 2017A, and 2017B fixed rate bond issues.
Move for approval.
Second.
Before we do that, I'm going to ask Mr. Hune to just give a very brief, we've got a lot of people in the room that don't know
Yeah.
what we're doing here,
yeah,
so just give it a little.
We will do a brief summary, and Mr. Hune, I don't know if you're aware, but Mr. Barlow is in the back room. He's been patiently awaiting. And for council's awareness, and Mr. Hune will give you a very brief summary, but council may recall that we did a debt restructure plan a number of years ago, and we actively manage our debt. And Mr. Barlow is here representing Mesero Financial, our consultants that we've worked with for a number of years. And I'm sure he'll be prepared to answer if you have specific questions. But first, I'm going to ask Mr. Hune to do the summary.
Sure, thank you, Ms. Reese. So the council is very familiar with our debt program. When interest rates get to a point to where it's reasonable to do a refunding, where we see a good savings in terms of our bonds, we execute a refunding. We work closely with Mesero Financial, always look at the market to see where our bonds are at in terms of outstanding debt and interest rate cost. And then Mesero also gives a sense of where that market might be. Currently, there is an opportunity for refunding that we see in the market for several of our bond issues, 6 bond issues in total. So we're monitoring those rates every day. We plan to execute this transaction with the same new money issue that was approved for $12 million, probably in late March, early April. A refunding is very similar to refinancing your house. You have a certain interest rate cost on your home mortgage. Rates drop down to a certain level. You can refinance your outstanding debt for your home and then reduce your overall carrying cost, reduce your overall payments. That's essentially what we're doing here. The market represents opportunity to do that. We will continue to monitor it. It will likely get better. When we refinance all the bonds that we're proposing, we see about a $1.2 million savings in our bond issue cost, in our overall cost for maturity for those debts. It'll likely, I'm hoping, to get better as we see rates improve, but that is certainly within, as we say, in the range of a good time to refinance debt. So we asked for your permission tonight and approval to execute that transaction between now and April 1st to take advantage of the interest rates that are proposed.
Would you make a comment on what that does to the term of the bonds?
Correct. And when we've done refunding in the past, we've never changed the actual terms. We might move around where principal payments are to maximize interest, but we never do an extended interest review. We always keep the debt at the same level. So the same terms in terms of maturity.
Any questions from staff or council? Please call the roll.
Mr. McCarthy,
Aye.
Mr. Preston,
Aye.
Mrs. Lorenz,
Aye.
Mr. Byers,
Aye.
Mr. Roberge,
Aye.
Ms. Smith,
Aye.
Mayor Kus.
Aye. That ordinance is approved. We have one public commenter at the end of the meeting. Zian Braden, is that correct? Usual, as I said before, just state your name for the record, and you have 3 minutes.
evening, Mayor, council members, and residents of Normal. My name is Ian Graydon, and I'm a firefighter paramedic with the Normal Fire Department. I'm here this evening representing my fellow firefighters, paramedics, as the Vice President of IAFF Local 2442. I would like to address the importance of prioritizing public safety in relation to the development initiatives that were discussed here tonight. Our union recently completed a community needs study analyzing emergency response. The data reveals a concerning public safety trend. From 2006 to 2024, we've experienced a near 84% increase in calls for emergency services. Unfortunately, our staffing level and resources have remained stagnant as demand continues to increase. You've heard that correctly. The fire department has seen an 83.6% increase in call volume with no prior or planned increase in staffing or resources. Our current deployment model does not meet the incident response standards set forth by the National Fire Protection Association. And with the upcoming relocation of Station 2, we will fall even further behind. This issue is not merely about convenience or image. Fundamentally, it is about ensuring the safety of our residents. Every second matters in emergencies. Whether it's a spouse unable to breathe as they lay seizing on the floor, or a young boy losing consciousness as he inhales the smoke from his home that is fully engulfed in flames. As our community continues to grow and develop, our emergency services must evolve with it. Any large infrastructure projects must take into account both current and future needs of essential services to ensure we maintain the high level of service our residents deserve. We believe in the residents of Normal and take great pride in serving our community. With the decisions that were made tonight regarding the underpass at Uptown Station project, we strongly urge for public safety to be deemed a top priority. Investing in the personnel and resources that protect every business and household in our town is vital. Our ability to respond to emergencies directly impacts lives every day. I urge all residents of Normal to review how current resources are allocated and advocate for their own safety. Please take a moment to explore our comprehensive community needs study at normalfirecoverage.com. Thank you for your time and consideration.
Before taking a motion, for adjournment, are there council comments or concerns? Motion for,
Second.
I just wanted to make one comment, and for council's awareness, I just wanted to point out that Mr. Aldrich is in the audience, and Mr. Aldrich is our former Public Works Director and our former Uptown Development Director, and you've heard me reference him multiple times in recent conversations because he was the one that's been working on that worked on the underpass project, over a decade ago. So I just wanted to point out Mr. Aldrich if you wanted to catch him afterwards and say hi.
Mr. Byers?
Yeah, just want to make a generalized comment. I've had some email communications shared and had a chance to meet with some of our representatives from our local firefighters union. They've got some concerns and some ideas they're asking us to consider, and I don't know if I support some, none, or all of what they're proposing, but I just hope that we can collaborate with them and try to make some decisions that are in the best interest of the future public safety of our community. So that's all I got.
Ms. Lorenz?
Just to piggyback on that, Mr. Byers, I'm glad that a study has been conducted by the local union. I want to remind staff that in August of 2024, I believe it was the August 19th meeting, we did say out loud here that we would be conducting a data-driven study within the next year. That was about 14 months ago now. So I just wanted to bring that up as a reminder.
Thank you. Motion for adjournment. Oh, Mr. McCarthy.
Yeah, I just want to appreciate the commentary to know that the study is out and available, because I have not seen it. So I'm glad to know that it's out there and and available. Because I did check, I haven't been sent it, but I'm glad to know it's out there and I can go take a look. So thank you.
I'm looking around. Motion for adjournment, please.
So moved.
Second.
Please call the roll.
Mr. Preston?
Aye.
Mrs. Lorenz? Mr. Byers?
Aye.
Mr. Roberge?
Aye.
Ms. Smith?
Aye.
Mr. McCarthy?
Aye.
Mayor Kus?
Aye. We are adjourned. Thank you.